Applause for Paul Brett, who's going to come and talk about adventures in fundraising.
Hi, I'm Paul, and I'm fairly local, about 10 minutes down the road from here. These days, I'm an organologist, I can't even say it, which is guitar history, and I'm an author, and that's kind of what I do now. I had a previous life, like most of us had, and I'm going to talk to you about fundraising. And for just £3 a week, if you want to contribute, then help yourselves. Now, so the thing is that we're a great nation of fundraisers. Everybody here has climbed up Everest, jumped off the top, swum around the English Channel, rowed a boat around the world single-handed. We're great at doing this sort of things, and we raise a lot of money in this country for really, really good causes that are close to our hearts. And at an early age, I got involved quite by accident in fundraising. It's become a theme in my life. So let me tell you about some of the things I've got up to. So, adventures in fundraising, here we go. So 3 themes, effing, beanies, and a deck of cards. Bit of a mix, let me explain. So, as a young lad, I ran away from home, age 16, joined the Royal Navy, and there's me and a crew from HMS Alderney, one of my first ships. It was a fishery protection boat, so we were bobbing around the North Sea, jumping on oil rigs and defending Britain's interests in the 200-mile zone around the country from drug smugglers and pirates and all sorts of bad people. But every year, as HMS Alderney, we used to go down to the Channel Islands. Our home port would be in Alderney. And the skipper said to me, Paul, we want to do a bit of fundraising for the lifeboat in Alderney, the RNLI. And he said, I want you to organise some fundraising to raise some funds so we can make a donation to them. And he gave me about 4 weeks. And I said, oh, thanks. What an anchor, I'm thinking. So anyway, Royal Navy are really good, really, excellent at swearing. So in the 4 weeks that we had leading up to our visit to Alderney, we got a swear box going. Now we had a small crew, there was only about 30 of us on board, and in 4 weeks we managed to raise £600, which was a good effort, I thought. So yeah, we that's one of my early sort of adventures in fundraising, and that kind of got me started. But anyway, I was a radio operator in the Royal Navy, so when I eventually left the Navy, I joined BT, being a communicator. It made kind of sense at the time, and when I joined them, I was put on one of these management courses, and we were sort of sent away for 6 months to go and do various tasks and everything. Now one of the tasks was like a challenge Annika to do some fundraising. We were given £50 and told to do some fundraising and try and reach a target of 500. Now we were split up into teams, and one of the guys in the team said, Paul, have you got any ideas? And I thought, well, I've heard of these things, these Beanie Babies. Does anybody remember those? Yeah, there was a big thing about them, wasn't there? Where people were going mad. Kids had no chance because the adults were buying them up all over the place, and making a big profit out of them. So I thought, well, if we can get some of those donated, perhaps we can make a little bit of money, maybe make £500. So anyway, I got in touch with the company, and we got a few. I also went around a lot of the shops and stores in the southeast, and people were trading them, and I was asking them for free, basically. And actually, people were really generous. So we got a bunch of Beanie Babies, and we all went over to, they had these things, they had beanie fairs, where people were going along, and these were really well attended. It was like the ideal home exhibition of Beanie Babies. Anyway, we had a little stall there, and we raised, I forget what it was, £900, there we go. So we cracked our target already, and we still had months to go. So that was going quite well, but I thought, hang on a minute, we can do something a little bit better than this. £900, we were a bit competitive, we wanted to win the challenge, so I thought, let's try and get some of these signed, and then we can raise a bit more money out of them. So, mid-year, walking around Hyde Park, with a duck. Not something you see every day. But I managed to get a lot of different celebrities to sign these beanies for us. You can see, I think one of the first ones I got was Richard Branson. They had the themes, these bears particularly had themes. So there was Britannia, the bear, and Kicks, the bear, the football one, and Princess Bear. So Paul Burrell, do you remember Princess Diana's butler, And so managed to get all these bears signed by the Spice Girls and Boyzone and all that kind of thing. And then we did a big auction, and this was in the early days, really, really early days of eBay, where eBay wasn't necessarily the first choice. But what I've discovered is that because of the beanie craze, eBay really took off. In fact, 10% of everything in the early days of eBay was all beanie related. And it's kind of what made eBay a success that it is today. A weird fact, but there we go. So anyway, there we go. I managed to get, we raised in the end £6,000 in the period that we were given. And we were raising money for guide dogs for the blind, and we paid for 6 puppies, which was great. So that was that little adventure. Now, beanies were great, but of course you've got to go and get them, and you've got to send them out, and you've got to hope they come back, and there's the postage costs and all that kind of things. Now, when I moved to another part of the company, I said, Paul, we've heard about your fundraising, we want to do something. I said, here we go. So one of the guys already did some fundraising for Great Ormond Street Hospital up in London. He was steward at some events and everything. I said, well, that's a fantastic charity. We've just got to come up with an idea now to fundraise for them. So my next idea was playing cards. Now, here we go. Now, this kind of replaced the beanie thing, because playing cards, I was going to go down the same track, try and get celebrities to sign these things. But of course, if you lose some playing cards in the post, one, they're a lot easier to send and easier to get back. But if you lose a couple of cards, you've lost nothing, have you, really? So that was a lot easier. So we started collecting signatures, and we started off, we had a launch party up at the BT Tower. And we had some celebrities there. We had a 7-foot bear, Disney's bear from the Big Blue House. So if any of you got children or grandchildren, you might remember Bear. He didn't say a lot, but nice guy. And we had this big launch party, and it was covered in OK magazine, and it all went rather well. So we got off to a really, really good start. So once we got into it, I kind of thought we need a theme for different things, because you think of a pack of cards, what kind of areas would you target? I mean, for example, what would you do in number 10s? Hopefully something like that. So we were very lucky. I started in the early days and managed to get right away back to Margaret Thatcher. And what we would do is kind of, every time we had a new Prime Minister, I would send some cards off and hope that they would sign them, and it was very successful, all the way from Thatcher through to Boris. After that, it got a bit difficult. It became a But that was great. So what we would do is every time that there was an election, what we would do is we would run an auction that tied in with the election period, so that it finished on the day of the voting, and we'd run a little sort of votometer or bidometer to see how things were going. So we'd have the different political parties, and Liberal Democrats and Labour Party, and some political commentators, boo and hiss as you wish. But I had a guy contact me from America, and he said, I can get a president to sign for you. Oh, wow, that's amazing. Anyway, Gerald Ford managed to get his signature, so we had 7 British Prime Ministers and 1 American president sign for us. Now, there's a guy that actually bought most of these from us, and he had a Museum of Democracy in New York. And they became part of a collection over there of over 1 million political items. So somewhere in this collection of 1 million items are a few star cards that we raised money for Great Ormond Street Hospital. So that was the political side of things. But another thing, I mean, we're in a tennis town, so aces, tennis players, obviously, yeah? Now, fundraising is really about developing relationships and getting to know people, and kind of starting off nice and easy, but building that relationship over time. So I managed to get in touch with the Women's Tennis Association and the ATP, which is the Association of Tennis Professionals, a bit of a mouthful, which is the men's tour, yeah? And we invited some of the players up to Great on the Street, and that became a sort of a fairly regular thing. Over here you can see Leander Pace, who used to be Martina Navratilova's doubles partner. Jamie Delgado became coach to Mr. Murray. And yeah, we used to have a regular event up at Roehampton, which is just around the corner from Wimbledon. And we used to invite some of the children along to meet some of the tennis stars. And here you see Ana Ivanovic, the Serbian tennis player. She became our sort of like regular patron, if you like, for a number of years, and supported us on her website. And she used to give us some additional things like players' passes for Wimbledon and everything, signed and everything, so again we could raise more money. She was fantastic. You might recognise these guys, a bit older now. Yeah, there we go. I mean, Roger, he's just recently retired, isn't he? But the others are just about going. And yeah, so we had all the big names signed for us. And we started getting, when we very first started, we were just kind of auctioning the cards without doing anything with them. We thought they'd look much better with a picture, wouldn't they? And put in a frame and everything. So we started doing all sorts of things. So Amelie Mauresmo, and these are the three world number ones at the time. Marion Bartoli here. And eventually we used to get all sorts of things like, training shoes and bags and all sorts. This thing here is, do you remember in the cycling world you've got the yellow jacket, haven't you? Yeah, yellow jersey. Well, the WTA decided that they would try that. I thought it was a good idea to have, like, the top player wearing the yellow jersey. But anyway, they didn't go with it. That was the only one they ever produced. They got it signed by 9 of the world's leading tennis players, and they gave it to me to auction for the charity, which is amazing. Now, so certain benefits of developing these relationships. So every year when they used to come to Eastbourne, the tennis players, it was my sort of privilege to be a school governor to a school fairly local. And my wife worked there, and my 2 daughters as well. I was able to invite the tennis players over to meet the children at the school. And again, this became a thing, so over a decade this went on. So these were all, world number 1 tennis players coming to the school, some big names. I mean, they're written there for you. Did you see at the weekend, Victoria Azarenka, she was playing, and she was playing the girl from Ukraine. She's from Russia, well, Belarus. Yeah, and there's this thing, isn't there, that they've been let in without a flag and all that sort of thing. She's actually a really, really lovely lady, very, very nice indeed. She lost the match, and of course the Ukrainian player couldn't or wouldn't shake hands. And on a human level, knowing how lovely she was, I thought it was really quite sad. But anyway, that's sport and politics, I guess, all mixed together. Elena Baltacci was the Scottish player, and she was lovely as well. Very sadly, she got liver cancer and died a couple of years after she came to the school. Now, when the players used to come to the school, quite often they became the Eastbourne champions, but we was always hoping, obviously, they'd go on and win Wimbledon. But the only player ever to do that was Marion Bartoli. And she came to the school, she had a marvellous time, and she tweeted when she was at Wimbledon, she'd won the title, how much the children at the school had influenced her and been an inspiration to her, which is amazing to tell the children about how they inspired a world-leading tennis player. So that was tennis. Another really, really strong theme that raised a lot of money for us was Formula One. And again, developing relationships, getting to know the right people over a period of time. This became a really, really good thing. I mean, the money on these ones were silly. It's probably the most profitable of the sort of cards we had on a regular basis anyway. For a single card, you would probably get to £800 to £900. Just framed up and everything. Obviously a big item like this would probably, £1,500–1,600, something like that. But we would frame them up individually, and we would do this every year for the British Grand Prix, obviously to maximise the sort of publicity of everything that was going on at the time. So that's Formula One, that's tennis. What other cards have we got in the pack? Jokers? Yeah, jokers. So, fortunately there's a lot of stuff going on down here in Eastbourne, isn't there, at the theatre and everything, so it was good to be able to catch up with a few people down here. So we don't. I never did Kings and Queens. Too difficult. Way too difficult. Now for guitar fans in the house, here we go. There's a few guitarists. Close to my heart. This is what I'm interested in. But I mean, really, most of the world's top guitar players would support us in the our annual thing. So we used to do the tennis during the tennis period. The Grand Prix period would be the Formula One, and then everything else was done at Christmas. So we'd have a big Christmas auction. So you know, the guitarist would be part of that. George Benson, obviously Gary Moore. Can you name the others?
Elvis Costello.
Elvis Costello.
Brian May.
Brian May, yeah. Bald-headed guy. Mark Knopfler. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, that was great. Actually, Mark Knopfler was probably one of our strongest supporters. He supported us every year for about 20 years or so. Really, really nice guy. Film and television. Here we go. Now, there's two here that I always pick out because Ronnie Barker gave us this letter and a signed photo. And the letter was really, really, this is typical Ronnie Barker. He said, just to confirm, this is me. It really is me. You can see it's me. It couldn't be anybody else but me. And that's what he's, which is lovely. Do you know this guy with a cap on over here? Yeah? Yeah? Fred Dibner, yeah? So Fred was famous for being a steeplejack. He used to do a lot of television programmes about him, steam engines, but he was a sign writer as well. And the reason I picked him out was his signature, for me, out of all the signatures I've collected over all the years, was the nicest. It was the most beautiful signature out of all of them, but because of his sign writing skills, I think. Here we go. That's the men in the film and television area. Some ladies. This isn't all of them. This is just a sample, by the way. There was a lot more as well. Jade Goody, do you remember her? Sadly, she passed away, didn't she? So Linda Robson was at our launch party when we first started. I caught up with her again down here in Eastbourne when the Birds of a Feather Ladies were down here. So there we go, star cards. That's film and television. Here's some more musical ones. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's some really, really good names up here, and again, a lot of these used to go for pretty good money. Probably about the £300-400 mark per playing card, which if you add a few of those up together over a Christmas period, it comes to a fairly healthy chunk of money. Any musical theatre fans in the house? Okay, I don't know if you know this lady. This is Kerry Ellis, big West End star, and Kerry, she also became a patron of our fundraising efforts for a number of years. I took her up to the hospital. Really nice story. There was she came to meet the children, and she's going around the walls with us. And a little girl said, "Can you sing a song for me?" And so she sang "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" to this little girl. Got a little video of it home. I can't put it out in public at all, but it was a really magical moment. And the girl's face was just beautiful from hearing Kelly sing to her. Unfortunately, the little girl a few years later did pass away, sadly, but that was a little moment of joy for her. Musical theatre again. We Will Rock You, the costs of the big shows and everything. The playing cards are so easy for them to do. You see, this was what was good about this theme. The old musical theatre stuff. Now, if we go back to the beginning, do you remember I was in the Royal Navy when I first started all this? Well, I thought I'd try and combine the two. Here we go. Star Cards and Royal Navy. So I got in touch with the Admiralty and I said, any chance we could borrow a warship, please? This is what happened. Okay. HMS Cornwall, one of the Navy's largest and most heavily armed frigates, was brought over especially for us from Russia. You couldn't do that today, could you? It was on exercise over there. They came over and we picked up 200 patients, parents, staff, helpers down in Tilbury, brought them up the Thames, past the O2 and the Thames Barrier, and parked or birthed, as we should say, alongside HMS Belfast here by Tower Bridge. Now, this was something completely new for the Navy. They do all sorts of things, but they hadn't done anything like this before. This was a new thing for the Navy. And it was the new thing for Great Ormond Street, obviously it's a one-off really. But it's the only event that Great Ormond Street, all of their top people, the chairman, the CEO, the medical directors and everything, it's the only event in living memory there that they've all wanted to come to. Because it's such a unique event. We had the Royal Marine Band there, and I took the crew up to BT Tower for breakfast to give something back to them. Captain Simon Charlier was played clarinet. That was his little sideline. So we had a reed that was signed by Accabilk. So that was my little thank you to him for helping us out. So that was an amazing evening of fundraising. So several years later, we had an anniversary. Went back to BT Tower, and we had a great evening there. We were getting sort of quite big time now. We had artists donating prints to us and signed and all that kind of stuff. Some live music. Brian May donating guitars, and you know, it was getting fun. So that was our big anniversary event, and obviously we're raising all this money. So once a year we used to go along to the charity, and we used to take along a cheque for the year's fundraising activities. So over that period of sort of 19, 20 years, I'm very proud to say that we raised about £300,000 for the charity. So the company, BT, I'm working for them, BT Sport said, "Oh, we like what you're doing, Paul. We have a lot of people come into our studios. Would you like to do something for us?" And so they had a charity division called the Supporters Club. There we go. So kind of replicated that. They were raising funds for something called the Supporters Club, which funded other projects around the world. And one of them was the Street Child World Cup, which we went to out in Rio before the World Cup out there. So every World Cup, every 4 years, they would get children that lived on the streets and played football on the streets to come together from India and from Africa and all around the world. And they'd have a mini World Cup for these kids that played football on the streets, and obviously raising awareness of the plight of these poor children. So that was a real privilege for me to be able to go to Rio and be involved with that. So there we go. That's me. That's 40 years of fundraising, and the fun that I've had. And I hope you enjoy it whenever you do any fundraising and you get involved with your favourite charity and your favourite cause as well.